for my second year. When I came last year, I was shocked and horrified by the concept of trying to talk about something in 20 minutes. Used to giving hour-long presentations at conferences. I thought, how am I going to squeeze something into 20 minutes? Well, I made it work, and I really like the format, the way that they do 3 people and then questions at the end. But a couple of weeks ago, Arlindo contacted myself and Gareth Locke and said, I've got a great idea. We want you to do a 4-minute talk. So this isn't going to keep you from your lunch, but I actually think it's a great idea. One of the greatest things that all of us that dive and those of us that teach can do is inspire the next generation. It's the youth getting into diving to protect the environments that you've seen today, the oceans, the mines, the caves, that are important. If you rewind back to the 70s when Cousteau did that, every child wanted to be a diver. Now, my beginnings 35 years ago are because of this man sat here on the left, a man called Steve Axtell, and a very young version of myself on the right. I'm still that age in my mind. I think of myself as a Peter Pan. Steve Axtell was my PADI open water instructor. I didn't do that course to become a diver. I did it because I wanted to get through short flooded sections of dry caves. I was a dry caver. But he inspired me so much with the love of being underwater, of diving, of the things you could see, the magic of watching a fish swim by in its own environment, and the urge to explore, to see things that nobody had ever seen. But more importantly, he inspired me to share that, to give something back, which led me to become an instructor. Now, I was asked to talk for 4 minutes, so I'm nearly done, on what makes a good diver. And a single piece of advice that Steve gave me on that open water course and through all my other training to become an instructor, and I've taken that with me right through to the dives I'm doing now at Deep, was on every single dive you do, practice one skill. And make sure the ones you practice are the ones you hate and the ones you're no good at. Because it's no good practicing something you already know you're excellent at just to look good on video, on a selfie, or even on an underwater mirror, believe it or not. You've got to practice the horrible ones, the mask floods, the mask removals, the bad visibility drills. Because then, when you get to the chance to explore environments like Natalie just shared with us, you have safety on your side. The next slide, please. Is it on just a clicker? Perfect. And this is just my second slide, just to give a brief snippet of the story of how I've put that always practice a skill on every dive into practice, and always with Steve Axtell's words in my head. The photo on the left, the cameraman is Steve Axtell. So 2 years after my PADI open water, I was one of the first groups in the UK to do trimix training, open circuit. The equipment configuration was questionable, certainly in this day and age. So I've got the big orange helmet on there. I've got a pair of independent steel 12s on my back, a hodgepodge of borrowed cylinders under my arms. We were talking about this last night at the dinner with Jill. We were coming up from 100 meters in a slate quarry in North Wales where Jojo was diving, and swapping back to air at 60 meters because helium was the bad guy. But all the time, practice a skill, practice a skill, practice a skill. And that currency gave competency, gave safety. Why did we do it? To practice for what we wanted to do. The early days of trimix diving in the UK that Lee Bishop is going to talk to you about later today and tomorrow. On that table is the bell of the Waitara, a triple-masted sailing ship that we found. And that's our early group, all of whom were involved in that small Dorset diving community that was spearheaded by Steve Axtell. And that practice a skill, practice a skill, practice a skill. Where did it lead me? All that skill practicing of dry caving, rope work, diving, and eventually rebreathers led me to spend 45 days underground with Bill Stone in southern Mexico in a cave system, 12 kilometers horizontal, 1.2 kilometers deep, just to get to my dive site. So a little bit up on climbing out of Aberlast, although I do agree with Jojo that that's pretty horrible and difficult. But all that time, practicing the hard skills, practicing the horrid skills, practicing the ones I didn't like, and I'll add to that, practicing that with my teammates and working as a team. And for me, that is the essence of how all of us, any of us, can be and remain a better diver. Thank you.